Okay, and I think we are live. Welcome everyone to our MonteTalks about project management. I hope that you can hear and see us. Let us know in the comments section that everything works fine. So yeah, today, as the name of the event says, we are going to talk about project management. Olgierd and Julia will tell us more about. Olgierd will tell us more about the future of project management, and Julia will tell us about the influence of cultural differences on business communication. We want to have a discussion with you. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them on the chat. And after each lightning talk, Olo and Julia will answer them. And okay, without further ado, Olgierd, I'm giving you the mic.
All right, cool. Thanks very much. I see that the presentation is already being shared. So just a side note, this is the future of project management. At least it is what I think it might be. So bear in mind that this is basically my welcoming you to a discussion that I would like to have with people responsible for project management, and not only all the people who work with project managers, who are in development teams in IT companies or anywhere that the PM is present, because I would love to know people's opinion on what it might look like. Should it stay the same as it is right now, or should it evolve in some way? So that said, let me start with the agenda. So there's three parts of my presentation. The first thing will be the backstory, why I decided to talk today about this topic. Then second thing is the current state of things, and a little bit of basic facts about the PM's work in Monterail, because that's what I'm mostly focusing on. But I suppose that it's pretty close to what other software houses might have on board. And then the last thing is the what does the future hold, and yeah, my thinking and my yeah, well, my thoughts about what the PM might become in the nearest future. So let's start with the backstory. So first reason I wanted to have this presentation done and to talk to you today was that in 2021, I decided I wanted to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, why I am a project manager, because I was suffering from a major burnout, and I actually wanted to, like, get back on track. And to do that, I wanted to understand what is it that really gives value in my work to the teams and the people I work with. The second thing was I observed a shift in PM's responsibilities in our company. I saw last year that PMs have become more and more parts of the teams, not just people doing the management, the so-called management, but also taking on more and more responsibilities connected to the product ownership, being a scrum master, being a leader. So yeah, so it started to become different from what most people think about the project manager's responsibilities. And the third reason was that I have heard at least a couple of times during the sales process that clients or potential clients told us that they don't really need a project manager, because their thinking of this role was that a project manager is somebody who basically forwards emails, who is this person between the team and the client. And a lot of our clients have become more well, tech savvy, or agile savvy, and they actually want to incorporate our teams into their workflow and have this really tight cooperation. And somehow their thinking is that PMs are a person in between, is something, an obstacle in that cooperation, which in my opinion is obviously not true. But this is something that gave me a lot of thoughts about what we should do to actually change that thinking in clients' hats. So this is the backstory part, and now let's move on to the current state of things, and that means a little bit of facts. So if you want facts, obviously you go to the first place well, the second place actually, because the first place I guess is Google, and the second place is Wikipedia. So I started my digging and my journey of understanding what the PM is actually from Wikipedia. And what I found is that basically an IT project manager is the same thing as project manager. At least that what Wikipedia says. And the thing that really drew my attention was this part of the project manager's definition. And it says, as it says here, a project manager is a professional in the field of project management. Project managers have the responsibility of the planning, procurement, and execution of a project in any undertaking that has a defined scope, defined start, and a defined finish, regardless of industry. And what really drew my attention is this specific part, because if there are project managers listening here, I hope there are, you probably know this best, that when we talk about defined scope in IT industry, or defined start and defined finish, it's rarely that easy, because scope changes, requirements shift, focus shifts, business value shifts. There are pivotal changes in projects. The project rarely actually ends as in like, thank you for cooperation, and that's basically it. Usually it just evolves into next phases after MVP. There's phase number 2, or different milestones. So it's continuous cooperation, and then even if you finish the development, you usually have a maintenance mode, a maintenance phase. So it's hard to say that something actually finishes or ends. And when it comes to defined start, this is more common, but still, when we talk about start, it's not only the kickoff date, it's also gathering all the information, getting accesses to repos, getting the right people. So the team composition, knowing the budget, the monthly budget, the client's flexibility, all this information that you have to have before you start. So that said, and continuing on the Wikipedia's definition, they talk a lot about managing. As you can see here, there's managing the project stakeholders, the communication, the project team, the project risks, the project schedule, the project budget, the conflict, the project delivery, all about management, manage, and all that. And it just seems to me that it's a little vague what we mean, or what Wikipedia means by managing, because it's just a, to me it sounds like a bucket of things that you do on a daily basis. So to understand my role and what I actually do when I say that I manage projects, I started writing down all the things that PMs do on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever. And I counted, as it says here, around 45 different tasks. Well, there might be some doubles, but definitely over 40 tasks that we perform every day. Not all of them, of course, every day, but random tasks out of these 45 are performed every day. And when you think about those 45 different tasks, there's different things. Like sometimes it can be a big thing, like establishing and confirming initial project budget, right? Then you have to communicate with the client, confirm. Then you have to confirm with the Monterail operations team, make sure that we have the right people in the right budget, that they will be available on time to deliver and to start working. Then there are things continuing on that operations team. As you can see here, cooperate with our operations managers. As I said, development team size, timeline, FTEs, all that things. There are smaller things, things that you don't really write in a job offer for a project manager, right? Take meeting notes, but it's a huge part of what we do, documenting what was discussed, what the outcome of discussion was, just making sure that the team, the client, everyone involved has access to those notes, that they are updated, that we can have a reference point for our future needs. There's stuff like backlog management assistance, marking the priorities, helping the client to decide what should be done in the next sprint, the next week, next month, whatever your phases are, whatever your workflow or your method of delivering is. There's this tight cooperation with the team and the client for outlining next steps, delegating research, making sure that the spike topics are properly handled, engaging the client in the scope management work, educating the client about the meaning of backlog, of refinements, of plannings, and so on and so on. And and then there's things like teams perspective tasks, just making sure that that the team's well-being is properly monitored, that you organize retrospectives to talk about problems in teams, that you basically lead team integrations, that you guys cooperate together. This is all project managers' responsibilities. And there's also one more thing that I outlined here, estimating new parts of the software, because here in Monterail, project managers also take part in estimating, in helping business analysts and the development team to prioritize, to create the scope, to understand the scope, to cut it or split it into tasks. So there's a lot of work that we do on different fields. So so if you look at the development cycle of a typical project, and you have this pre-kickoff phase, then the MVP, which is included in the development phase, and then supposedly you have the maintenance part, or continuous development, whatever it is. The PM is basically involved in all of these phases. With different tasks, with different type of involvement. Sometimes it's more hours, sometimes it's less hours, but basically those 45 tasks are continuously done, and they can randomly pop up in a different day. So if I have to split those tasks and responsibilities into 3 different key areas of expertise, then in my opinion, this is what it looks like right now. The biggest part of our work is this classic, whatever it is, classic project management. What I mean by that is maintaining budget, looking at the timeline, reporting about progress, the meetings, the planning sessions, making sure that everybody knows what to do, that we're basically going in the right direction. But we also perform things from the product ownership part, which what I mentioned was, for example, the backlog updates, the backlog management, helping the clients to understand the priorities and how to create a proper roadmap, how to update it, and so on. Plus, working with the BA and the team on new features, new estimates, and then we also have this part of leadership, Scrum Master. I know that not everybody uses Scrum, so that's why I basically split it into leadership / Scrum Master, because this is all the tasks that basically help us perform as a team. This is the work of a PM done to basically know the strengths and the weaknesses of every team member, to basically know that the team is going more and more into this self-organizing way of doing things. But but if I were to say what it looks like currently, of course this is a bit of a generalization, but well, for the sake of this presentation, this is what it typically looks like in the PM's world. So 3 different areas, but mostly focusing on the classical project management. So if you think that about the fact that that the average number of projects per project manager in Monterail is around 4, and you also know that we have those 3 areas of expertise, and you also know that there's 45 or 40 different tasks being done daily in those 3 areas, then the word that might pop up is multitasking, or should I say context switching. And context switching is very energy consuming, and basically it means that it's a killer of efficiency and focus, because if you jump from a meeting to meeting, from a thing to thing, you have to constantly reset your mind to think about a new topic. Does this mean that the PMs are ineffective or not focused? Of course not. What I mean is that whoever wants to be a project manager has to be this specialist in jumping between topics and still maintaining focus in every meeting or every conversation they have, or every task they perform, which is very hard. So but by doing that, by taking a lot of this this meeting time and a lot of this context switching pressure on themselves, they allow the rest of the team to actually focus for a long time on the product development, right? Whether engineers, designers, QAs, they need those long periods of time to perform their tasks. So we as a PM, we take that context switching more on us to allow people to spend their precious time on development work, on product development. On a side note, there's a really good book about deep work. I highly recommend it because it actually talks about this focused work and spending your focused time on performing tasks. So I recommend it because it's basically something that also inspired me to think about the PM's role in the future. And yeah, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe, because I've looked into the Google Calendar of some of the PMs in our company, and I've seen things like 10 meetings, 11 meetings, 12 meetings, and so on. I could keep counting, I think to around 14 or 15 a day in some extreme situations. This only proves my point that currently the PM takes a lot of those client team meetings, anything that might just split time, and it's really exhausting to handle all of that. So whoever is out there listening to me being a PM, I know what you feel on a daily basis. So if I were to summarize what the people in Monterail, what the project managers in Monterail actually do right now, it's basically making sure everyone understands the scope and priorities, removing obstacles to ensure deep focus time for the development team, establishing and maintaining a healthy partnership with our clients through communication and delivery, and leading the team and the project in the right direction. This is the current state of affairs. Now, what does the future hold? And this is where where we land on the article that I've read that actually, as I said, inspired me to talk about this. How Big Tech Runs Tech Projects in the Curious Absence of Scrum by this gentleman. And it's super interesting because he basically asked the biggest tech companies of the world who usually typically leads engineering projects, and it turned out that it's usually a tech lead or an engineer who is appointed or self-appointed as a team leader or a project lead, because they do not have a project manager. Now, of course, these are not companies that are software houses. They have their own products. So obviously a project manager might not be the best idea to have there, but their argumentation is basically that there are no dedicated project managers for team level projects. There are, although, technical program managers, and these are the people that connect different teams when there are really complex projects throughout the company. So what it usually looks like is that we have the product managers in those companies, but not project managers. They basically said that tech leads or the project leads, the engineers, can handle the project management themselves with the help of the team, which is interesting because we have those product managers, and these are the people deeply rooted in the business side of the product. Obviously, they work on the business side, the data science, the design. They handle the roadmaps, they create the plans, prioritize work, and as it says here, escalate where needed. And then the team is self-organizing, is fully independent, and the team decides with the help of the tech lead and the lead engineer how they are going to perform their work, how they are going to solve the problems. So this is what it usually looks like in those huge companies, that you have a team with an engineer who is a project lead or a tech lead, other engineers, other people on the team. I suppose there's also testers, designers, whoever is needed, and then you have a second team and the third team, and they basically communicate with each other. And the team number 2, team number 3 also have their appointed project lead. And when you have really complex projects, as I mentioned before, you have this program manager who connects all of these different teams together, working on some huge projects. Now, of course, as I said, these are companies that have their own products. Sometimes they have hundreds of products, like Amazon or Google. So obviously, this is not this could not be copied literally to our workflow. But the question here is, does that mean that those companies, those huge companies, will basically influence all of the others to get rid of project managers, and those will soon be redundant in IT? I don't think so, because there are two situations, and this is also said in this article, that will require, and the article talks about Scrum, but I would go further, and I would say that these two situations actually require the project manager. First of all, this is the kitchen sink teams, and kitchen sink teams are basically, when you think about kitchen sink, it's basically a place that you could put all the things that you have, some dirty plates and stuff like that, right? So this is obviously a joke here, but it works. It's a good comparison, because in software houses, teams often have no idea what will come next. Some requirement changes, some new features, as I said, pivotal changes in the project, and so on. So they are constantly, waiting for new bugs that the client might mention or whatever, right? And then the second thing is the forming and storming stages of new teams, because we in Monterail do not have stable teams that that stick together for new projects to come. But with every new project, we have a new team forming. There are pluses, there are minuses to this situation, but whatever the approach, there is this forming and storming phase of a new team, and this is where the project manager comes in the future, in my opinion, at least, because the first situation needs strong product ownership, saying, no, we cannot do this because it's not the priority, and about this, and it brings no business value. This could wait. Let us think. Is this new requirement coming from the fact that we got some user feedback, or is this just some idea that just popped up? So assistance to the client with thinking about the product, the new ways of developing the product, of improving the product, and so on. And then the second thing is the leadership part, which I think is going to be huge when it comes to the needs of future teams, because you need somebody on the team that will tell the team what to do now in the next sprint or in a crisis situation, how to solve some issues, how to keep our our heads keep our eyes on the ball, and so on. So product ownership and leadership will be, in my opinion, the biggest part of project managers' work. So if I come back to these three areas and what it looks like right now, as I said, project management being the biggest part, the typical, right? Maintaining the budget sheets and just communicating with the client and the team and making sure that we're delivering on time and so on. I think it will move. It will move to this way, that the product ownership and the leadership will become bigger. Leadership becoming the key element of project managers' work, just pointing the direction, making sure that the team's well-being is on point, that everybody knows what to do, that we're motivated, that we have all the skills we need, and so on and so on. Then helping the client and the team to understand the scope, to cut it down, to basically understand what's supposed to be done and what the product vision is. The project management part will stay, but it will become smaller, as I think that will basically be the needs of the new teams in the future. And so if I come back to this project cycle, I think that there's need to have this project manager plus the project lead working together, and gradually having project manager step down, back up slowly, letting the project lead and the team to self-organize, because this is basically the idea of all today's IT development teams. And I think to sum up my my presentation, I think that project manager will be less and less about those typical responsibilities, and more about asking a question at the beginning of every project, and then regularly asking that question to the team. And that question would be, how can I help you? And listening to the needs of a team, and allowing them to take more and more responsibilities on themselves and be responsible for the outcomes, or for the delivery, becoming more independent, because that's the agile way, and that's what I believe should be the future of project management. And that said, thank you very much for listening, and I guess it's time for questions, right?
Yes, it's time for questions. So if you have any, don't hesitate to ask them. Oliver will stay with us till the end of this meeting. So if anything comes up in between presentations, so don't hesitate and ask them. And now, thank you, Ola, for now, for your presentation. And without further ado, let's give a stage to Julia.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Happy Thursday. First of all, it's it is such a pleasure to be here today, have I hope interesting discussion about different part of project management life. I am going to present you some research, some data. I hope related to cultural differences and their influence, their impact on our daily business communication, but different business interactions. So Starting with, well, why I feel like it is important to talk about cultural differences when you are a project manager. First of all, analyzing cultural differences help me to understand how the cultural framework I am working with is different than the one I grew up with. And it helped me realize how biased I was thinking that patterns I follow in my daily business interactions are dominant and generally binding, which is absolutely not true when we compare mine to different countries around the world. Learning about cultural differences also is my personal form of cultivating diversity. Diversity is not only the key factor of the organization I am working with, but it's also my personal one. So I see that digging for this kind of data is a form of my take care of diversity as well. It also helps me solve project problems quicker. And it helped me what I find the most important to take and handle certain project situation, not that personally. Because I well, if I know how differences are working between the cultures, it let me understand that on the other side, some actions are not caused by a bad by a bad willing, but because we just work and cooperate in a different cultural framework. And what is most important, all of this awareness just helped me to reduce stress. We know that project management life can be stressful sometimes, so any help which can somehow improve us being less stressed as project manager is very, very important. So, which business activities and actions it's useful to analyze from the perspective of cultural differences? So definitely communication and the way we create messages, evaluating the way we provide, the way we receive, and also share criticism. Persuading, the way we persuade other people, which is also related to daily negotiations. Leading, Ola was talking about the leadership, so this is also interesting to see how people from different cultures see leadership and understand what does it mean to be a strong leader. Designing how the process of making decisions looks like. Trusting, how we build mutual trust between, for example, our client or inside of our multicultural teams. Disagreeing, our ability to disagree openly or only privately. And scheduling, so our approach to time and planning. So how can we analyze all of those activities from cultural perspective? Erin Meyer, the professor at INSEAD, one of the leading international business schools, who taught thousands of executives how to work more effectively across cultural differences, used scales to map cultural differences related to business interactions. Erin mapped mentioned activities on scales, placing them based on comparisons you are seeing on the slide. So, as it should be a lightning speech, I'm not able to discuss all of those scales. So it's going to be only a teaser, maybe for you to dig into that topic. So I'm going to briefly discuss some selected scales which I found useful from the project management perspective. So, starting from communication. Analyzing communication from cultural perspective, let us understand how various cultures build and convey messages. So, in general, how people from different cultures see what does it mean to be a good speaker. So the communication cultures are divided into low and high context communication. So what is the difference between low and high context communication? In low context communication, people are trained to communicate as literally as possible. So good communication is all about clarity. If the message isn't understood, the fault is held by the sender. Repetition is appreciated because it helps clarify the communication. To compare, in high context communications, messages are often conveyed implicitly, require the listener to somehow read between the lines. And good communication is subtle, is very layered, and you need to listen and speak between the lines. The responsibility for understanding the message is shared between the sender and the person who received the message. So yeah, those read between the lines. It's also the responsibility of the side who is listening to a certain certain message, let's say. So how cultures are placed on the communication scale? Well, as you see, Japan is seen as the highest context culture in the world. And on the other side, US is seen as the lowest context culture in the world, followed by Canada, Australia, the Netherlands, Germany, and the UK as the highest context culture from the Anglo-Saxon cluster, because all of those, apart from being located on a certain part of the scale, there are also certain clusters. So well, how to be a good speaker and approach well each of the communication cultures. So low context culture may perceive high context speakers as secretive, lacking transparency, or unable even to communicate effectively, right? So once you talk to low context culture representative, start your conversation by stating the main idea, make your points very clearly, and at the end recap what has been decided and what will happen next, and ask if your message was clear enough, and then even follow up what you said with with an email. In high context communication culture, well, they may perceive low context speakers are inappropriately stating the obvious. So whenever you repeat a certain part of your speech, or you ask if did you understand everything what I said, people from high context culture may have this kind of impression, well, they treat us like we are children. So once you talk to high context culture representative, learn to listen what the message meant instead of what has been like directly said, and look for no between the lines, even if the first sentence starts from yes. Well, kind of challenging. When we should use the writing for in communication, definitely approaching low context culture. In low context culture, even if you have nothing to say, it would be nice as a receiver of the message, inform the other side that you received that message. Silence means something negative, potential problems. So even thank you for your email would be kind of enough. In high context communication culture, expect that even in a couple of days, someone can reply to you, well, we did what you requested us to do. So don't take personally the waiting time. And also what is important for us as project manager, low context cultures likes documentation, organizational charts showing who works for whom, titles describing who is on which level, written objectives explaining who is responsible for accomplishing what. In high context communication, written documentation is less necessary. Written form may be treated even as a lack of trust and not professionalism. So you can imagine analyzing our own cultural framework, how different this communication may look like. Moving forward to the next thing which we can analyze from the cultural perspective, evaluating. Well, evaluating and let us understand that managers in different parts of the world are conditioned to give feedback in dramatically different way. Well, the cultures are divided into direct negative feedback cultures and indirect negative feedback cultures. Negative feedback, indirect negative feedback culture is provided very, very frankly. Negative messages stand alone. They are not softened by positive ones. Absolute descriptors are often used when criticizing, and criticism may be given to an individual in front of the group. To compare to indirect negative feedback culture, well, their negative feedback is provided very, very softly. Positive messages are used to wrap negative ones. So first, for example, we can say something positive, and then somehow, even hide this negative feedback. Qualifying descriptors are often used when criticizing, like you did something quiet, not well. And criticism is given only in private. It touches also, the positive feedback as well when it comes to this direct and this indirect feedback culture. So some countries are differently located on the communication map than on evaluating scale. For example, Americans are low context culture, low context communication culture, but they pass negative feedback in indirect way. And for example, French are high context communication culture, but pass negative feedback very, very directly, and as the research say, in very passionate way even. A great example also of high context and direct feedback culture is Russia, where you need to speak between the lines, but direct negative feedback is passed very, very sharply and directly. Low context culture and indirect negative feedback. The great example is the USA, where you can, well, it is very common to give 3 positives for every negative part of the feedback. And for most direct negative feedbackers, US feedback style is confusing and even false. Here we can see how different countries pass the negative feedback. We don't have Poland on this scale, so we can give a thought to where locate the cultural framework actually we are working in. So how to approach each of these cultures? So when it comes to indirect feedback culture, well, don't give negative feedback to individual in front of the others. That's absolutely no. People may feel offended even if you do it in the most polite way. And as I already said, it touches also positive feedback. People can feel uncomfortable when you point them out publicly. Also, you can use the technique of blurring the message, give the feedback slowly over a period of time so that it gradually sinks in. And well, you can always use food or drink to blur the unpleasant messages. Once people are relaxed, it's easier to give and take feedback, even the negative one. Well, how to approach the direct feedback culture, like French culture? First of all, first rule, don't follow the crowd. You can go too far and get it wrong. We don't have often the full knowledge of what is appropriate and what is not. And well, try to maybe accept direct criticism in a positive manner, and try to explain how it works in your culture. So maybe the other side will be a little bit more sensitive when it comes to passing the feedback. Okay. Next thing which I found very interesting, analyzing it from a perspective of cultural differences, is persuading. It shows how different cultures build arguments to persuade successfully. It is very useful ability for us project managers when we need to negotiate with the clients or convince to follow a certain approach, for example, during development. Persuading depend on two style of reasoning, principle first and application first. So principle first, it's based on a deductive reasoning, derives conclusions or fact from general principles or concepts. So you basically start from a general principle and move from it to a practical conclusion. It is highly related to educational system, based on it is based on the educational system where 80% of a time is dedicated to concepts and theories, and 20% to applying those principles to concrete problems. I feel like it sounds kind of familiar to our own cultural framework. In business world, the principle first culture, for the principle first cultures, it is important to explain the reason of doing something first instead of going straight to the point of how you achieve certain result. When it comes to application first culture, it is based on inductive reasoning. So general conclusions are reached based on a pattern of factual observation from the real world. And it is related to Anglo-Saxon educational system, where 80% time is spent on the concrete tool and how to apply something, and only 20% on considering its conceptual or theoretical explanation. So how to approach this culture of persuading in business? Well, focus on how to do something rather than why in the first place. So, the scale, most people are capable of practicing both. But application first thinkers like to receive practicals example upfront. They will extract learning from this example. They also like case studies. Principle first also like practicals examples, but they need to understand the basis of the framework before they move to application. It is very useful when you try to explain as a project manager or part of the dev team, explain and negotiate different approaches in development. So how to combine both methods of persuading for mixed groups? So as both groups know how to combine both, try to go back and forth between theoretical principles and practical examples. And try to keep the balance based on what is the majority of the group you persuading. So moving quickly on to the next one, let's move to trust building across the culture. The trust between people from different culture is built based on two type of trust: cognitive trust and affective trust. So the cognitive trust is based on the confidence you feel in another person's accomplishments, skills, and reliability. It's often built through business actions. And as a comparison, affective trust arises from the feelings of emotional closeness, empathy, and friendship. And it's often built through the time spent together. And it doesn't have to be, a business meeting. It can be lunch or any other activity. Americans are strong representatives of task-based trust. Chinese society mix both in business, even treating American strict division between the cognitive and affective trust as a lack of sincerity and loyalty. When it comes to scale, as you see, in the US and Switzerland, business is business. In countries like Brazil or China, business is personal. So in the past, US model of building trust was seen as a dominant one, and now the situation is not that obvious. BRIC countries reach a strong position on the global market, so we need to also understand and learn how to build trust in a different way. So how to approach different cultures of trust? Well, choose your communication medium well. Choose meetings in relationship-based trust cultures to build a relationship. For task-based trust cultures, email are fine on every stage of the relationship, as it is pretty American style when it comes to building the trust. It also require it also saves time, so it will be appreciated if you minimize the time consuming, and that's fine. To approach relationship based trust cultures, look for the things in common on which you can build a relationship, and take into consideration the meaning of spending time together, right? To build this trust. And maybe consider a couple of common meals together. It is very helpful also. The clock is running, so I must stop up our close cultural management discussion, leaving you with some thoughts. I think it is super interesting and broad topic. So I hope my presentation would be only the introduction, a teaser to broader discussion about cultural differences and their impact on business systems of different parts of the world. As a last thing, a general rule for moving smoothly in different cultural frameworks. When interacting with someone from another culture, try to watch more, listen more, and speak less. And hope this quote will just maybe leave you I am leaving you with this quote, or maybe it will open also the discussion. So thank you so much. That was a huge pleasure to speak for you today.
Thank you, Julia, for an awesome presentation. We have one question from Alex. In things that are culturally different, do you have any tips of how to find a common scale?
To common scale, could you repeat the first part of the question?
Yeah, in things that are culturally different, do you have any tips of how to find a common scale?
I think knowing those differences would just build the common scale, because we don't take personally certain actions different than the one we would do. Right. So I think it is important also, whenever you have a multicultural team to set up certain rules describing why is it important whenever you start working as a team. Explain how it works in your cultural framework, and based on that, as you will have the common understanding, you also have a specific rules for your team. So maybe that would help to somehow build a common scale.
Okay, thank you, Julia, for the answer. And okay, I think, sadly, this is the end. We don't have any questions, but, feel free to ask on the comment section. We'll answer you even after the meeting. And Olo and Julia, I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. And thank all of you who are watching all of our presentations. Have a nice rest of the evening, and, see you next time, because more MonteTalks to come in the future. See ya.